Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, before I begin, I want to ask you a question. Is there anyone here who does not want global peace? Is there anyone here who doesn't want global peace? 100% of you all want global peace. And the vast majority of people in the world want global peace. But we are waiting. Why are we waiting? What are we waiting for? The reason is there are few individuals, organizations, and nations who don't want global peace. And we have to wait until they change their ways. So, this is a waiting period for people who do not want global peace to change. Secondly, we need to understand that conflicts and poverty are two key challenges that are leading to destruction of global peace. Conflicts and poverty. Conflicts cause poverty, and poverty can cause conflicts. From the year 2008 to 2014, a matter of 6 years, there has been, that is 54% of the total number of countries in the world, they have deteriorated in levels of peace. 54% of the country. And since then, more countries are deteriorating, drifting away from peace. So, there are new conflicts and there are old conflicts. The world leaders and institutions have not succeeded in preventing conflicts or stopping conflicts. Some conflicts are new and some are old. In Syria, 6 million children are in need of humanitarian assistance. Out of those, 2 million are in areas which are not reachable, and 500,000 children are under siege, some of them for the last 2 years. You know, children in Syria, they don't go to school because some of the parents, they don't want to send the children to school because they don't think they would come back home in the evening. So they keep them at home. But those who go to school, those children cannot concentrate because they are cold, they are hungry, they've had nightmares, they've seen all the gunpowder being threshed out, and also they are suffering from lack of sleep. These children cannot concentrate. Then there are children who suffer from psychological disorders, physical disorders, and physical disability as a result of the injuries sustained. There are some children who suffer physical and sexual harassment as well. So, we are producing a group of children who have been through this, and there are 3 million children who haven't been to school at all. So this is a situation what we are seeing in the world. Crisis after crisis, and conflicts and disasters after disasters. It is not easy for world leaders and institutions to handle crisis after crisis, and some of them are quite major ones, without the support and cooperation of global citizens, civil society, and private sectors. We are experiencing more frequent disasters and also more conflicts. No one individual nation or person can actually handle these problems. We need to work together. There is a need for collective action it is our responsibility to act collectively. And this is where we need to try and get people from all sectors, at all levels in society, to join in to achieve global peace. To master this, can I ask for silence, please, while I'm speaking? To master this process, we need we need human rights, justice, welfare, and security. And this requires cooperation and also understanding from all sections of society. We are in the midst of one of the greatest humanitarian crises of our lifetime. Disasters are affecting 200 million people every year, and there are 65 million people forcibly displaced at this point in time. And that's the highest figure ever recorded. At least 1 in 5 displaced girls and women are sexually assaulted. And these girls say, the victims say, we need a decent life and dignity. And the girls say, we just want to be able to go to school and live in peace without having guns pointed at us. That is all we want. That is the situation at the moment. On average, a refugee remains a refugee for 17 years. So you can try and understand, when there is a war and there is refugees generated, that person who has become a refugee can remain a refugee for 17 years. Some of the refugees have been refugees for 50 years. So, what are the causes of conflicts and war? I've been asked to make my presentation to half the time, from 30 minutes to 15 minutes. So I'm going to go now fast. So if you'll excuse me. Causes of conflict and war are several. People who have territorial insecurity try and combine with other countries or other nations, and then they try to fight common enemies. That is territorial insecurity. Second is territorial expansion. The neo-colonization that exists in some nations, they want to try and expand into other people's nations by fair or foul means. And then there is a religious differences. Judaism, Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, Sikhism, and Buddhism share a lot deal more in common than is commonly believed. We all belong to one tribe, the human tribe, and we are all a creation of one God. Each individual has different beliefs. We have to be able to respect other people's beliefs. Whether they are compatible or we are disagreeable with them, we have to respect those beliefs. What is not acceptable is injuring, killing, destroying other people who hold beliefs that are variants to theirs. The important thing is there is a moral duty to hold back those that are responsible for doing wrong. They may be individuals, they may be organizations, and they may be nations. There is also the responsibility to assist those individuals, organizations, and nations to whom wrong is done. Tribal differences causes a lot of conflicts in many countries. Political ambitions and oppression, they all cause conflicts. Injustice, the absence of moral and cultural values breeds injustice, particularly towards those who are weak, who have no voice, or are unable to retaliate. Poverty. In poverty, we find that we have 1 billion people who are dying of hunger in the world, who suffer from poverty. When there is enough food and enough wealth around to be able to provide food to these people. Poor people, they have to try and get a job or have a small business or try to grow food in order to feed themselves. If that does not succeed, they start begging. If that doesn't succeed, they steal, and then some can turn to prostitution to fill their tummies. These are the sequences that you get when there's poverty. And who are the poor people in this world? Those people who cannot get jobs, who have got no skills, who have got little income for investment, for business. Then there are people who are of poor health, or people with disability, or people who are just lazy, don't want to work, or those people who really are discriminated. So there is favoritism. And then there is those people who are displaced. 65 million refugees, they are displaced, so they are poor. Then there are people who are exposed to corruption. These are the people who are poor. Now, I'm pointing those out because that is what will come out in how to achieve global peace. Now, poor people need to be understood, and they have to be given a lot of assistance, which I will come to as I go along. Then there are people, then the other cause is revenge. Then there are some nations who like to settle all scores with other nations because of what they've done in the past, or some people in a nation wants to settle all scores. Then there's acquisition of mineral, oil, and land. Some countries will try and create conflicts in other countries just because they want to try and get hold of minerals, oil, or land. There is exercise of power and domination, and also discrimination, which I have mentioned, that is what can cause conflicts in the end. Corrupt leadership, lack of human values and moral values can lead to uprising, and climate change can cause flooding or drought, and then the farmers' livelihoods suffer, food prices go up, and poverty increases, and that can lead to problems in keeping the government in power. So we say the current trend at the moment is spending billions of dollars and human resources in addressing the humanitarian crisis and ignoring the issue of conflicts. This is like trying to sort out the symptoms but forgetting about the cause of the disease. We have to address the cause and not only the symptoms. Why spend billions of dollars on helping to look after refugees when you can stop the generation of refugees by preventing and stopping conflicts? So easy. It's a logical system, and we have to try and now address all our energies to preventing and stopping the conflicts. There are currently over 65 million refugees, and those refugees, they do not get proper attention, because humanitarian relief and development efforts must go hand in hand, which is not the case. And this is why we are producing a group of refugees who are poor, who have got no motives or motivation, and who are psychologically disturbed, physically with ailments, and this is the lot we are going to inherit, and they have to be attended to. So what do we need to do is we have to put a stop to the generation of refugees by preventing and stopping conflicts. So if you want to stop conflicts, you have to get the political leaders, the powerful interests, and the ordinary people when you want to bring about some sort of change. If you just leave the political leaders to do it, it won't happen. So we need to get, because people is power. Ordinary people have power. And whose peace is it anyway? This is the peace of the people. You've got to get them involved. So people, the political leaders, and the powerful interests have to be involved. Second, the program for reconciliation has to be between hostile parties, is to be implemented right at the outset, only by expert, impartial third parties. And the meeting has to be arranged as an emergency when a conflict is identified and without resorting to any veto of any kind. The points I am making, please try and bear in mind that this is reflecting what has happened and also what is being planned for the future. Program for international cooperation, the idea is to ensure that nations request help whenever needed early rather than late. We have to identify nations with territorial insecurity very quickly, and we try and address them very effectively. Now, there are countries which are in need of expansion, a need of generating income. There should be a system of a program for the lease or sale of spare unused land. There are many countries, and I know those countries who would benefit by allowing foreign countries to come in, to invest in the land, and the local indigenous population will be given jobs. It can be done. There is no need to try and use forceful means and go and attack other countries, and you find millions of people dying. That is not right. That is wrong. You can get what you want without having to go through killings of innocent people. And you can only understand that when you put yourself in that position. So the refugees management, the adult refugees, when they come in, they are people like us, well respected in society, well off. Suddenly, they find themselves in a tent. They are nobody. They come in and they are so helpless, and they can go into depression. So what we need to do is think of that they don't go into a state of helplessness or depression. We have to help them at that time, early stage, as well as later on, we put them into vocations which are useful for them. As for children, when they come in, some of them have lost their parents or have become disabled. When they come in, they are in need of love and security. You can only understand them if you have got good imagination. The children have come in, they have lost their parents, or they are disabled, and they are in some foreign land or some other place where in a tent. They need love and security. And then they have to be started on the school curriculum very quickly. Then there's program for refugees, smart city. A smart city has to be built up with the help of using the skills of the refugees themselves. And in either a safe haven within their own original nation or in another country. But this has to be with low wages, low housing costs, and low food expenses. And this can be done. This is what I'm working on at the moment. But this can be done where those refugees can be rehoused there, resettled there. The program for repatriation of refugees, these are innocent people who through no fault of their own have had to left places they loved and places they knew. Most of them, as I said, were well-respected people, well settled, and they would much rather be in their own homes and in their own nations than be a burden on anyone or any nation. We have to see it through the eyes and minds of these people, these innocent people, and help them to go back to their own homes with the provision of security, safety, and also provide incentives. They had to flee other areas and nations overnight with no possessions, purely and simply for their safety and that of their families. So we have to start thinking of conflicts and poverty as the two main drivers which actually prevent global peace. These are the key challenges affecting contemporary society and culture. Just talking about things and no action, it would mean that this is a talk show, which means we just come here, talk, then we have coffee, dinner, and we are gone. No, there has to be action. We discuss, we find out what is going on, and we have to start thinking about what action should be taken. And this is a very serious matter because it will affect each and every one. No one is going to be immune from becoming a refugee. Mark my words. If this is not stopped, ultimately anyone in any country will be at exposure of becoming a refugee. I don't want to go into details, but try to remember what I'm saying. So, we want to achieve global peace. It is not difficult. It is very easy, I say. We want to wake up one day in the morning and know that there is global peace. It is achievable. It's not difficult. So we need to start thinking long-term, short-term, intermediate term. We need to have global schools program where children are taught about global cultures, religions, traditions. Then we have to have school exchange system. Then we need to re-establish what used to be Sunday schools or Friday schools. We need to re-establish. At the moment, the world, you see, 50% of the people don't believe in religions. 50% of the people who do believe in religion don't attend a place of worship. So, there is no exposure to that nutrition to the soul, which is actually affecting adversely moral and cultural values. So we need to re-establish those and impress upon the parents as well to have certain times for indoctrinating the children in moral and cultural values. These are important for their children to progress in life and also how they will behave with them when they are older. So, there's got to be a program for eradication of poverty and unemployment. When you want to try and implement a program for eradication of poverty, you have to first do a market scan. Find out what jobs are in demand, what businesses are in demand, what products are in demand, what crops are in demand, what service is in demand. And what jobs will become redundant when there is too much of automation and artificial intelligence. So you must do that market scan before you start any course or training. Because if you provide training to people, at the end of training, you find they had the qualification, the training, but they are unemployed and poor. What is the use of that training? It is wastage of resources. So you've got to start thinking of market scan first. Then you have to establish what is the passion for, how many minutes? Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to go very fast. Then they have to be having a passion for what they're going to do, as well as they must be suitable. And it has to be also accompanied by capacity building, self-development skills, like time management, honesty, social interest connection, etc., management of money, as well as computer skills. National strategies, there's got to be nations have to understand that they have to create more jobs. At the moment, all nations are losing jobs. Create more jobs, encourage foreign finance into the nations. There's got to be reduction in bureaucracy, and industrialization has to be encouraged, and corporates have to be given incentives to create jobs. And there has to be harmony in the country. So the question is now, live and let live. Do unto others as you would like others to do to you and to your dear ones. And remember this, it has been mentioned, history repeats itself. What people do to others, it may repeat to you as well. So careful. It is not just taking it lightly. The salvation for humanity lies in promoting love for each other and not hatred. Peace, global peace, will come with love, not hatred, which is exactly the case now. So, how to respond to bigger and more numerous crises? The big question is how to respond to bigger and numerous crises with dwindling resources. At the moment, there is a deficit of $10 billion for United Nations. They haven't got it to pay to people because it's been overspent. So how do you respond with dwindling resources while trying to prevent and stop conflicts? There is a solution. Get the global citizens involved. People, ordinary people like us, they are people who can help to try and complement the efforts of the world leaders and institutions. And these are people who have got good feelings, good passion to help others and to bring about peace and harmony in the world. At no time in history has the importance of promoting cultural diplomacy been greater than it is today. I think my time is up now, and I'd like to say one last thing. Please, the time for mere discussions has gone. There is no time for mere discussions. It is now time for action. Thank you very much.